And welcome to yet another free Friday tidbit. October is wrapping up. Can you believe it? This is the last Friday of the month. So we're going to close out our month-long focus on strengths by taking a look at how we can build effective accommodations. Now, as we've been talking about so far this month, strengths are primary characteristics. In other words, strengths are uniquely they are the outcome of our unique wiring. No two people have the same combination of strengths, right? Of gifts, of talents, of interests, of the way they like to learn things, the preferences that they have. So those are all intrinsic to who we are as people. So just as we all have our own individual challenges, we have our own individual strengths. And one of the keys to effective accommodations is to build upon those strengths. And I want to talk about something, and this is not going to be, useful for everybody, but to give you an example of a really good thing to build upon for those that it does fit. Rhythm, right? You may or may not have paid attention to my various references through the years to my mother having dementia. And with dementia, what they've found is that someone's sense of rhythm is one of the last things that they lose. And it's a way to reach that person who's still trapped in their mind is through rhythm. And I bring that up because rhythm is a very powerful way that we can kind of get beyond the challenges that we may have with learning and memory. For instance, I'm working with a client whose son loves to, start with a beat and make up his own rap lyrics, right? So why can't we build upon this interest in tackling some of the challenges? For instance, if there are memory challenges for, so many people with FASD, they can remember, if you give them a list of instructions that has several items, they can remember the first thing or the last thing, but not usually all the things in between. It just depends on which tail they grasp onto in their memory, right? However, using rhythm can be a very powerful memory aid. For instance, and this is trivial, Israel is in the news. Do you know how the Bible was taught before there were printing presses? It was through rhythm. It was through rhythm. Prayers are chanted, which is kind of like rap. I mean, there's some lyrical movement, but not a whole lot. It's definitely not an opera, right? But the entire scripture is learned that way. And in fact, if you think about a bar mitzvah, right, or bat mitzvah, so, when a child turns 13, most of us have heard of this tradition, whether or not we are Jewish. In days of old, someone had to, in preparation for that ceremony, that induction into manhood or womanhood, right? You had to memorize a chunk of scripture. And in the old days, I mean, it was a huge chunk. It'd be like an entire book of the Bible, right? And you had to present yourself at the synagogue and chant that section of scripture to the rabbi 5 times and come back a 6th time and recite it backwards. That's where we get our phrase, our saying, knowing something so well that we know it forwards and backwards, comes from this tradition. And how is it possible? Because that's a lot of words. And let's face it, some sections of scripture are pretty dry. It's because it was learned in a rhythmic fashion, right? So can we take these ideas and put them to use in our day-to-day life, helping our child, our spouse, whoever it is that we love, who has a memory and learning problem, hang on to something through the use of rhythm? It doesn't have to be a rap beat. It could be any kind of musical line that, from their favorite song, and adapt the words to be maybe the steps in a chore that needs to be done. Just a thought. But that's an example of a creative way to build upon strengths in creating tailored accommodations, right? You could apply it to learning a math solution. You could apply it to all kinds of, you could apply it to spelling tests, right? I mean, do we not sing supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, right? We use the musicality. Anyway, just a thought. I hope you guys have a great week. Don't forget to come back to this YouTube channel on Monday for yet another episode of Living with FASD. And this coming Monday, we are going to be talking with Jen Wisdahl from the FASD United. She's a chief operating officer. She's coming back on the show to talk about the outcome of this year's National FASD Impact Week in Washington, D.C. So she'll be talking about the silent auction, about all the meetings they had with legislators, the Red Shoes Gala. And I'm so excited. She said that my book was a very popular item in the silent auction, which raised $170,000 for FASD United to do all the important work that they do to support policy that makes all our lives better. So if you're interested in getting hold of a copy of my book, just pop on over to Amazon, put in my name, Patricia Casper, Casper's with a K. And the name of the book is Sip by Sip, Candid Conversations with People Diagnosed as Adults with Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorders. All right, so I'll put a link in the show notes. Anyway, so yeah, grab your copy today. Come back on Monday for this exciting episode of Living with FASD. Have a great week. And November is going to be a new topic. We're going to be returning to some of the challenges that we have within primary characteristics. We're going to be tackling sensory systems and sensory motor integration. So it'll be a good one. Have a great week, everybody, and enjoy your weekend.